The great meeting hall of the Galactic Peace Council buzzed with worried voices. 12 different alien species sat around the massive circular table, but today they all shared the same fear. Humanity had become a problem they could not ignore. Ambassador Taemin adjusted his silver robes as he studied the data on his screen. The numbers were frightening. In just 50 years, humans had gone from being trapped on one small planet to controlling 17 star systems. They had built cities that floated in space and ships that moved faster than anything the Council had ever seen. "They are too dangerous," said the representative from the Crystalline Collective. Her voice sounded like music, but her words were hard. 3 of our member worlds tried to stop their expansion. All 3 failed. Dr. Hai-Jin, the Council's best expert on alien minds, nodded slowly. She had studied the reports from those battles. The humans had not just won by fighting. They had done something much worse. They had convinced some of the attacking aliens to switch sides and fight with them instead. "How does a species learn to fight so well so fast?" asked Captain Wusung. His people, the Void Hunters, had been warriors for thousands of years, but even they were afraid of what humans could do in battle. Young analyst Sora pulled up a holographic map of human space. Red dots showed human colonies. Blue lines showed their trade routes. Yellow marks showed where they had fought battles. "Look at this pattern," she said. "They do not just take territory. They make it better. Every world they touch becomes more productive." The council leader, an ancient being older than most civilizations, raised one of his forearms for silence. "We have tried to ignore them. We have tried to threaten them. We have tried to fight them. Nothing works. Now we will try something different." He looked around the table at each representative. "We will send our best diplomats to Earth. They will negotiate a peace treaty that keeps humans in their own space. If they refuse—" He did not finish the sentence, but everyone understood. The Council had weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Taemin felt his hearts beating faster. In his 300 years of life, he had negotiated treaties with every major power in the galaxy. He had ended wars that lasted centuries. He had made peace between species that hated each other for thousands of years. But humans were different. They did not follow the normal rules. "I will lead the mission," he said finally, "but I will need the best team possible." The council leader nodded. "Choose whoever you want. This is too important to fail." Taemin looked around the table. "Dr. Hai-Jin, I need your skills to understand how humans think. Captain Wusung, your military knowledge will help us understand their tactics. Analyst Sora, your ability to see patterns might help us predict what they will do next." The 3 aliens he had chosen looked surprised. They came from very different species and had never worked together before. But Taemin knew they were the best at what they did. Dr. Hai-Jin's crystal-like skin shimmered as she thought. "The reports about humans are very strange. They seem to think differently than any species we have met before. Their minds work in ways that do not make sense." "What do you mean?" asked Taemin. "Most species think in logical steps. A leads to B leads to C. But humans seem to jump from A to Z without going through the middle steps. Yet somehow they are usually right." Captain Wusung made a sound like grinding metal, which was how his people laughed. "That is what makes them so dangerous in battle. You cannot predict what they will do because they do not think like normal warriors." Sora was, studying her data again. "There is something else strange. Every species we have contacted has the same basic structure. Strong leaders make decisions. Weak followers obey orders. But humans seem to have no clear hierarchy. Sometimes the lowest-ranking soldier makes decisions that change entire battles." Taemin felt a chill. His people, the Zentari, had ruled their empire for 50,000 years by maintaining strict order. Everyone knew their place, everyone followed the rules. The idea of soldiers making their own decisions was terrifying. "How long until our ship is ready?" he asked. 3 days, replied the council leader. "You will travel in the Harmony of Stars, our fastest diplomatic vessel. It has the most advanced shields and weapons just in case." Taemin hoped they would not need weapons. War with humans would be devastating for both sides. But he had to admit that having strong defenses made him feel better. The next 3 days passed quickly. Taman spent his time studying every piece of information the Council had about humans. Their history was short but violent. They had fought wars among themselves for thousands of years before they learned to work together. Even now they were divided into hundreds of different nations and cultures. Yet somehow when they reached space, they had united almost instantly. The first human colony ships had crews from dozens of different Earth nations. Their space military included soldiers from every human culture. It should not have worked, but it did. Dr. Hai-Jin joined him in his studies. "I have been reading about human emotions," she said. "They have more different feelings than any species we know. Most of us have 5 or 6 basic emotions. Humans have words for hundreds of different feelings. Is that what makes them unpredictable?" asked Taman. "Maybe. Or maybe it makes them more creative. Look at their technology. They invent new things faster than anyone else. Their ships use power sources we do not understand. Their weapons work in ways that should be impossible." Captain Wusung had spent his time studying human military tactics. "They do not fight like any warrior culture I know," he reported. "They use strategy and emotion together. They make their enemies angry, then use that anger against them. They make allies out of people who should be enemies." Sora had been analyzing human communication patterns. "They do not just exchange information," she said. "They exchange feelings and ideas in ways that change both the speaker and the listener. When humans talk to each other, both of them become different people." Finally, the day came to leave for Earth. The Harmony of Stars was the most beautiful ship in the Council fleet. It was 3 kilometers long and shaped like a crystal flower. Its hull shimmered with colors that had no names. As they entered hyperspace, Taman looked at his team. Dr. Hai-Jin was meditating, preparing her mind for contact with an alien species. Captain Wusung was checking the ship's weapons systems. Sora was running final calculations on their route. All of them were experts. All of them were the best their species had to offer. But as they traveled toward the Sol system, Taemin could not shake the feeling that they were not prepared for what they would find on Earth. The journey to human space took 7 days. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, they found something unexpected waiting. For them, human ships surrounded them, not attacking, just watching. The ships were smaller than the Harmony of Stars, but there were hundreds of them, and they moved in ways that seemed to defy the laws of physics. A voice came over their communication system. It spoke perfect Zentari, with no accent at all. "Welcome to the Sol system. I am Captain Dong Hyun of the Earth Defense Force. We have been expecting you." Taemin stared at the human ships surrounding them. They moved like schools of fish, turning and flowing together as if they shared one mind. But that was impossible. No species could coordinate hundreds of ships so perfectly without a central command system. "How did he know we were coming?" whispered Dr. Hai-Jin. "And how does he speak our language so well?" Captain Dong Hyun's voice came through their speakers again. "Please follow us to New Seoul Station. Ambassador Jiwon is waiting to meet with you." The human ships began to move, creating a corridor of space for the Harmony of Stars to follow. Taemin had no choice but to order his pilot to comply. As they traveled deeper into the Sol system, he watched the scanner readings with growing amazement. The system was full of activity. Massive space stations orbited every planet. Ships moved, between them carrying cargo and passengers. Around Earth itself, there were so many artificial structures that they almost formed a second moon. "Impossible," muttered Captain Wusung. "Our intelligence said they only reached space 50 years ago. How did they build so much so fast?" Sora was frantically taking readings with every sensor they had. "The energy signatures are all wrong," she said. "These structures use power sources that should not exist, and look at this." She pointed to her screen. "That space station is bigger than our capital city, but it is only 10 years old according to our records." As they approached New Seoul Station, Taemin felt his confidence slipping away. The station was beautiful beyond anything he had seen. It looked like a crystal flower blooming in space, with petals that caught and reflected the light of the sun. Gardens were visible through transparent walls. Water flowed in streams that defied gravity. It looks like art, said Dr. Hai-Jin softly. Most species build for function. Humans build for beauty too. Their ship docked with a soft thump. The airlock cycled and Taemin led his team into the station. The first thing he noticed was the gravity. It felt exactly like the gravity on his homeworld, even though Earth was much smaller. The second thing he noticed was the air. It smelled like flowers and rain. A human was waiting for them in the docking bay. She was small compared to most species in the galaxy, but there was something about her presence that made her seem much larger. Her dark hair was pulled back simply, and she wore clothes that were elegant without being fancy. "Welcome to New Seoul Station," she said in perfect Centauri. "I am Ambassador Ji-won. Thank you for coming so far to meet with us." Taemin had prepared a formal greeting that would establish his authority and the seriousness of their mission, but something about the human's warm smile made his prepared words seem wrong. "Thank you for receiving us," he said instead. "I am Ambassador Taemin of the Galactic Peace Council." Ji-won bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that surprised him. "Please let me introduce you to my colleagues." A human male stepped forward. He was older than Ji-won, with kind eyes and hands that looked like they were used to delicate work. "Dr. Yun-ho," he said. "I study how different species think and communicate. I hope we can learn from each other." Another human approached. This one wore a simple uniform and moved with the easy confidence of a professional soldier. But his eyes held none of the hardness that Taemin expected from a military leader. "General Kyung-soo," he said quietly, "I am here to address any security concerns you might have." Taemin introduced his own team. He watched carefully as the humans met each of his people. When Dr. Hee-jin extended her hand in the traditional crystalline greeting, Dr. Yun-ho responded with exactly the right gesture and pressure. When Captain Woo-sung made the warrior's salute of his people, General Kyung-soo returned it perfectly. "How do you know our customs so well?" asked Taemin. Ji-won smiled. "We have been watching and learning for a long time. We believe that understanding others is the first step toward friendship." She led them through corridors filled with wonders. Gardens grew in zero gravity, their roots floating in spheres of water. Art from dozens of worlds decorated the walls. Children from several species played together in a park that had no up or down. "You have other species living here?" asked Dr. Hai-jin. "Of course," said Dr. Yun-ho. "Many people from other worlds choose to live with us. We learn more when we share our lives." They entered a conference room that took Taemin's breath away. One wall was transparent, showing the curve of Earth below. The planet was blue and white and green, covered with swirling clouds. It looked peaceful and beautiful. "Please sit wherever you are comfortable," said Ji-won. Taemin had expected a formal negotiation table with seats arranged to show power and hierarchy. Instead, there were comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. No one sat higher than anyone else. No one was separated by barriers or distance. As they settled into their seats, Ji-won began to speak. "We know why you are here," she said gently. "The Council is worried about human expansion. They want us to stay in our own space and stop growing." Taemin felt surprised again. He had planned to begin with formal statements about the Council's authority and the need for order in the galaxy. "Yes," he said. "The Council believes that rapid expansion creates instability." "We understand that concern," said General Kyung-soo. "Growth can be frightening when you do not understand its purpose." "What is your purpose?" asked Captain Woo-sung. His voice carried the edge that all void hunters used when they suspected deception. Dr. Yun-ho leaned forward. "To learn. To grow. To help others do the same. We expand not to conquer, but to discover new ways of thinking and living." Dr. Hee-jin had been quiet during the exchange, but now she spoke. "May I?" She gestured toward Dr. Yun-ho. Her people could read surface thoughts through touch, a ability that made them excellent negotiators. "Of course," said Dr. Yun-ho without hesitation. Hee-jin reached out and placed her crystal fingers on the human's forehead. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her eyes went wide with shock. She jerked her hand back as if she had been burned. "What did you see?" asked Taemin urgently. Hyejin looked at Dr. Yunho with something like awe. I cannot describe it. His mind works on levels I did not know existed. Thoughts and feelings and ideas all flowing together. And underneath it all," she paused, struggling for words. "Underneath it all is something I have never encountered before." "What?" pressed Taemin. "Hope," she said simply. "Not hope for himself or his species. Hope for everyone. Hope that all of us can become more than we are." The room fell silent. Finally, Ji-won spoke. "That is why we cannot accept the Council's demand to stop expanding. Not because we want to conquer, but because there is so much more to discover. So many new ways to think and live and grow." She looked around the circle at each of the aliens. "The Council sees our expansion as a threat, but we see it as an opportunity. Not just for us, but for everyone." "What kind of opportunity?" asked. Silver Dr. Yunho smiled. "The opportunity to become something new, something better, something that has never existed before." Taemin felt something shifting inside his mind. For 300 years he had negotiated from a position of maintaining order and preventing change. But these humans spoke of change as if it were a good thing. "The Council will not accept that answer," he said carefully. "We know," said Ji-won. "That is why we want to propose something different. Instead of trying to convince you with words, we want to show you. We want you to stay here for a while and see how we live. See how we work with others. See what we mean when we talk about growth." General Kyung-soo nodded. "Experience is a better teacher than explanation." Taemin looked at his team. Dr. Hyejin was still staring at Dr. Yunho with fascination. Captain Woo-sung looked suspicious, but curious. Soro was taking notes as fast as her fingers could move. "How long?" he asked. "As long as you need," said Ji-won. "Days, weeks, months. Whatever it takes for you to understand what we are really offering." Taemin thought about the Council's instructions. They had told him to negotiate a quick treaty and return. They had not said anything about staying on Earth for an extended period, but they had also told him to do whatever was necessary to prevent a war. "We will stay," he said finally, "but we reserve the right to leave at any time." "Of course," said Ji-won. "We would never keep you here against your will. Freedom to choose is one of the most important things we believe in." As the meeting ended, and the humans showed them to their quarters, Taemin wondered what he had just agreed to. Part of him felt like he was making a terrible mistake, but another part of him, a part he had never noticed before, felt excited about what he might learn. That night, as he looked out at Earth spinning slowly below, he realized that the humans had already begun to change him. For the first time in his long life, he was looking forward to tomorrow not because it would be like today, but because it would be different. 3 weeks had passed since the alien envoys arrived at New Seoul Station. Each day brought new surprises that challenged everything they thought they knew about how intelligent species should behave. Taemin walked through the station's main garden with Ambassador Ji-won, watching children from 6 different species play together. A young human girl was teaching a Zentari boy how to catch soap bubbles, while a small creature from the Hive Collective drew pictures in the sand with its many arms. "How do they communicate?" asked Taemin. "They all speak different languages." Ji-won smiled. "Watch more carefully." Taemin observed the children again. The human girl was not using words to teach the Zentari boy. She showed him with her hands, laughed when he succeeded, and gently corrected him when he made mistakes. The Zentari boy was learning not just how to catch bubbles, but how to share joy with someone completely different from himself. "They understand each other through actions and feelings," said Ji-won. "Words are just one way to communicate. Often they are not the most important way." This idea made Taemin uncomfortable. In Zentari culture, precise language was everything. Laws were written in exactly the right words. Agreements were binding because every term was clearly defined. But these children were making agreements and sharing ideas without saying anything at all. "Does this work with adults too?" he asked. "Come with me tonight," said Ji-won. "There is a community meeting in Sector 7. People are deciding how to solve a water shortage in the agricultural section. That evening, Taemin attended his first human community meeting. He expected to see a formal debate with leaders making speeches and followers casting votes. Instead, he found 50 people sitting in a circle, talking quietly among themselves. An older woman began by explaining the problem. The agricultural section needed more water than the recycling systems could provide. They had 3 possible solutions, each with different costs and benefits. Then something amazing happened. Instead of arguing about which solution was best, the people began sharing stories. A young engineer talked about how water shortages had affected his childhood on Mars. A farmer described how plants responded to different types of water treatment. A mother explained how children learned to value water when they understood how precious it was. As people shared their experiences, Taemin watched the group's thinking change. Ideas combined and evolved. New solutions emerged that no one had thought of before. By the end of the meeting, they had developed a plan that was better than any of the original 3 options. How did that work? Taemin asked Ji-won as they walked home. When people share their experiences, they create new knowledge together, she explained. The solution belongs to everyone because everyone helped create it. Meanwhile, Dr. Hyejin was having her own revelations while working with Dr. Yoon-ho in the station's research center. As a member of the Crystalline Collective, she had always believed that intelligence was about processing information quickly and accurately. But humans seem to use their minds differently. Try this experiment, said Dr. Yoon-ho. He showed her a complex mathematical equation that had no apparent solution. Do not try to solve it logically. Just look at it and tell me what you feel. Hyejin stared at the equation. Following her training, she began breaking it down into components, analyzing each part systematically. But Dr. Yoon-ho stopped her. No, he said gently. Do not think about it. Feel it. What does the equation want to become? The idea seemed ridiculous. Equations did not want anything. They were just arrangements of symbols that followed logical rules. But Dr. Yoon-ho was patient, so she tried to approach the problem differently. She let her mind relax and simply looked at the symbols without analyzing them. Slowly, she began to sense patterns that were not visible to logical analysis. The equation seemed to have a rhythm, a flow that suggested certain transformations. Following these feelings rather than logic, she began rearranging the symbols. To her amazement, the equation began to solve itself. Within minutes, she had found an elegant solution that pure logic would have taken hours to discover. How is this possible? She asked. Human minds work on many levels at once, explained Dr. Yoon-ho. Logic is just one tool. Intuition, emotion, and pattern recognition all contribute to understanding. When you use them together, you can see things that logic alone cannot reveal. Captain Woo-sung was learning different lessons while training with General Kyung-soo and the Earth Defense Force. As a void hunter, he had been taught that combat was about defeating enemies through superior strength and tactics. But human soldiers seemed to approach conflict differently. During a simulated battle exercise, Woo-sung watched human troops make decisions that violated every principle of effective warfare. When enemy forces threatened a civilian evacuation, the humans chose to protect the civilians even though it meant giving up tactical advantages. You are making yourselves vulnerable, he told General Kyung-soo after the exercise. A real enemy would exploit those weaknesses. Perhaps, said Kyung-soo, but we would rather lose a battle than lose the reason we fight. What do you mean? We do not fight to prove we are strong. We fight to protect what we value. If protecting civilians makes us weak in battle, but keeps our values strong, then we have won something more important than the fight. This confused Woo-sung. In void hunter culture, strength was the highest value. The strong ruled and the weak served. It was simple and efficient. But humans seemed to believe that some things were more important than being strong. A few days later, he experienced this personally during an emergency response drill. A real accident occurred in the station's engineering section, trapping several workers behind collapsed debris. Woo-sung joined the rescue effort, expecting to see humans organize themselves into efficient teams with clear command structures. Instead, he saw something that amazed him. People worked together without being ordered. Engineers became rescue workers. Doctors became heavy equipment operators. Children brought food and water to the rescue teams. Woo-sung found himself working alongside a human woman named Dr. Eunmi to cut through twisted metal. She was small and not particularly strong, but she worked with a determination that impressed him. When a piece of debris shifted dangerously, she pushed him out of the way, putting herself at risk to protect him. "Why did you do that?" he asked later. "I am not your responsibility." "You are here helping us," she said simply. "That makes you part of our community. We protect our community." Sora was making her own discoveries while working with human scientists on economic modeling. Her gift for pattern recognition had made her the youngest analyst in Data Synthesis Guild history, but human approaches to understanding patterns challenged everything she thought she knew. Dr. Min-woo, her human partner, showed her data about galactic trade flows that revealed inefficiencies costing billions of credits per year. Sora immediately began calculating optimal solutions using traditional mathematical models. "Your solutions are mathematically perfect," said Dr. Min-woo after reviewing her work, "but they will not work in the real world." "Why not?" asked Sora. "The math is correct. Because math only describes part of reality. Look at this trade route." He highlighted a shipping lane that carried agricultural products between two systems. "Your optimization suggests changing the route to save fuel costs, but the current route passes through a system where the inhabitants depend on trade traffic for their economy. If we change the route, we save money, but destroy their livelihood." Sora studied the data again. "I did not consider the social impact." "Most galactic economists do not," said Dr. Min-woo. "They treat people as variables in equations, but people are not variables. They are individuals with needs and hopes and fears. Any solution that ignores that will create more problems than it solves." Together, they began developing new models that considered not just efficiency but also the welfare of everyone affected by economic decisions. The work was more complex than anything Sora had attempted before, but it was also more satisfying. She was not just solving mathematical puzzles. She was helping real people live better lives. As the weeks passed, all 4 envoys found themselves changing in ways they had not expected. Taiman began to value collaboration over authority. Heejin learned to trust intuition as much as logic. Woo-sung discovered that protecting others could be more fulfilling than defeating enemies. Sora started seeing patterns in human behavior that were more complex and beautiful than any mathematical equation. But the most profound change was something they all experienced together. For the first time in their lives, they felt like they were growing, not just learning new facts or developing new skills, but actually becoming different people, better people. One evening, as they shared dinner in Taimin's quarters, Dr. Heejin voiced what they were all thinking. "We cannot go back," she said quietly. "Even if we return to our homeworlds, we will never be the same people we were before we came here." Taimin nodded. "The question is, what do we do with what we have learned?" Captain Woo-sung, who had always been the most skeptical of the group, surprised them all. "We share it," he said firmly. "What we have experienced here is too valuable to keep to ourselves." Sora looked out the window at Earth spinning below them. "But will our people accept it? Will they want to change?" 6 months had passed since the envoys arrived at New Seoul Station. The beings who now stood in the communication center bore little resemblance to the ones who had first docked with the human station. They moved differently, spoke differently, and most importantly, thought differently. Taimin activated the long-range communicator to contact the Galactic Peace Council. As the connection established, he felt nervous in a way he had never experienced before. Not nervous about failure or punishment, but nervous about being misunderstood. The holographic image of the council leader materialized before them. His 4 eyes examined each of the envoys with growing concern. "Ambassador Taimin, you were ordered to return months ago. Why have you remained on the human station?" "We needed more time to understand their true nature," replied Taimin. "What we have learned will change everything." "Report," commanded the council leader. Taemin took a deep breath. Humans are not the aggressive conquerors we believed them to be. They are something entirely new. They do not seek to dominate other species. They seek to grow alongside them. The council leader's expression hardened. Explain. They have developed ways of thinking and living that solve problems we believed were unsolvable. Resource conflicts, territorial disputes, social inequality. They have found answers to all of these challenges. Impossible, said the voice of the crystalline collective representative speaking from off-screen. These problems have existed for millions of years. No single species could solve them. Dr. Hyejin stepped forward. They do not solve them alone. They solve them together with other species. I have seen it happen. When different ways of thinking combine, they create new possibilities that none of us could imagine by ourselves. The communication was interrupted by another council member, a Void Hunter General. Captain Wu-sung, report on human military capabilities. Captain Wu-sung straightened. Their military is unlike anything we have encountered. They do not fight to conquer. They fight to protect. And in doing so, they have become stronger than any force in the galaxy. Elaborate. When soldiers believe they are protecting something valuable, they fight with a power that cannot be defeated by weapons or tactics alone. They fight with their whole beings. But more importantly, their enemies often choose to join them rather than continue fighting. The council leader leaned forward. Are you saying that humans convert their enemies? Not convert, said Wu-sung carefully. Transform. They show other beings new ways to live that are better than conquest and domination. When you see a better way, you choose it freely. Sora added her own observations. Their economic systems eliminate scarcity by ensuring that everyone benefits from prosperity. When all people gain from trade and cooperation, there is no incentive for conflict. The council chamber erupted in multiple conversations as representatives spoke among themselves. Finally, the council leader raised his arms for silence. These claims are extraordinary. Do you have proof? Taemin gestured to his companions. We are the proof. Each of us has been transformed by our contact with humans. We think differently. We solve problems differently. We relate to others differently. You have been contaminated, said the crystalline collective representative. Your minds have been altered by alien influence. Dr. Hyejin felt a flash of anger, an emotion that surprised her with its intensity. Not contaminated, she said firmly. Enhanced. I can now use parts of my mind that I never knew existed. I can see solutions to problems that pure logic cannot solve. And I have learned that strength comes from protecting others, not defeating them, added Wu-sung. This knowledge makes me a better warrior and a better being. The council leader studied each of them carefully. You all speak differently than before. Your thought patterns have changed. This proves that humans are capable of mental manipulation on a massive scale. Taemin realized that his old way of thinking would have agreed with the council leader. 6 months ago, he would have seen these changes as corruption or weakness. Now he saw them as growth. They are capable of something far more powerful than manipulation, he said. They are capable of inspiration. They show you what you could become, and you choose to become it because it is better than what you were. The connection flickered as interference disrupted the signal. When it cleared, a new voice was speaking, the military commander of the council forces. Ambassador Taemin, intelligence reports indicate that human expansion has accelerated during your stay on their station. 3 new colonies have been established. This proves they cannot be trusted. Sora checked her data pad. Those colonies were established to provide disaster relief for species whose worlds were damaged by natural catastrophes. The humans are sharing their technology to help rebuild entire civilizations. For what price? Demanded the military commander. What do they gain from this assistance? Knowledge, said Dr. Hyejin. They learn new ways of thinking from every species they help, but the species they help also learn from humans. Everyone grows stronger together. The council leader was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was cold. You have all been compromised. Return to Council space immediately for medical and psychological evaluation. Taemin felt his hearts racing. And if we refuse? Then, you will be considered enemies of galactic peace and dealt with accordingly. The threat hung in the air like a poison cloud. Taemin looked at his companions. Dr. Hyejin's crystal skin was flickering with emotional colors he had never seen before. Captain Wusong stood straighter than ever, but his hand rested on his weapon. Sora was frantically calculating possibilities on her datapad. "We need time to consider your ultimatum," said Taemin. "You have one standard day," replied the Council. "Leader. After that, Council forces will come to collect you." The connection ended, leaving the 4 envoys alone in the communication center. For several minutes, no one spoke. Finally, Dr. Hyejin broke the silence. "They will not listen to us. They see our transformation as a threat rather than an opportunity. Can we blame them?" asked Wusong. 6 months ago, we would have reacted the same way. Sora looked up from her calculations. The Council is mobilizing a battle fleet. 300 ships are moving toward human space. They intend to force us to return and then attack Earth. Taemin felt a new emotion rising within him, protective anger. The thought of Council forces attacking New Sol Station, threatening the humans who had become his friends, the children who played in the gardens, the researchers who were solving galactic problems, filled him with determination. "We cannot let that happen," he said. "What choice do we have?" asked Hyejin. "We are 4 individuals against the most powerful military force in the galaxy." Before anyone could answer, Ambassador Ji-won entered the communication center. She had been monitoring their conversation with the Council's permission. "You have more choices than you realize," she said gently, "but they all require you to trust in something new." "What do you mean?" asked Taemin. "You could return to the Council and try to convince them through traditional diplomatic means. But we both know that will not work. They are too afraid of change." She moved to the window and looked out at Earth. "Or you could help us try something that has never been attempted before." "What?" asked Sora. "We could invite the Council to experience what you have experienced. Not just hear about transformation, but actually undergo it themselves." Captain Wusong shook his head. "They will never agree to that." "Not all of them," admitted Ji-won. "But some might. And sometimes that is enough to begin a revolution." "Doctor," Hyejin stepped closer to the human ambassador. "What exactly are you proposing? When the Council fleet arrives, we will not fight them. Instead, we will invite them to send representatives to live among us as you have done. We will offer them the same opportunity for growth that you have experienced." Taemin stared at her. "You would risk everything on the hope that a few Council members might be willing to change?" Ji-won smiled. "We would risk everything on the certainty that change is possible. You 4 are proof of that." Sora ran new calculations on her datapad. If even 10% of the Council fleet chooses to experience human society, it could change the balance of power in the galaxy. "And if they refuse?" asked Wusong. "Then we will face whatever comes together," said Ji-won. "But we will face it as the people we have chosen to become, not the people we used to be." That night, as the 4 envoys prepared for what might be their last day on New Sol Station, each of them reflected on how much they had changed. They had come to Earth as representatives of old ways of thinking. Now they were pioneers of something entirely new. Taemin walked through the gardens one last time, watching the children play. Tomorrow, Council ships would arrive with enough firepower to destroy the station in minutes. But tonight, human and alien children still laughed together as they chased soap bubbles through the artificial gravity. He realized that this was what they were really fighting for, not political systems or territorial boundaries, but the right of all beings to grow into something better than they had been before. The Council saw that growth as dangerous. But Taemin now knew it was the most precious thing in the universe. The transformation was complete. There was no going back. But perhaps, if they were very brave and very lucky, the Council battle fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a storm of metal and energy. 300 ships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready. Admiral Krathvor of the Void Hunters commanded the fleet from his flagship, expecting to face desperate human defenders and retrieve 4 compromised envoys. Instead, he found himself staring at a sight that made no sense. The 4 envoys were approaching in a small diplomatic shuttle. But they were not alone. A single human ship escorted them, not a warship, but an elegant vessel that looked more like a work of art than a military craft. And they were broadcasting on all frequencies, speaking directly to every ship in the fleet. Tayman's voice came through clearly. "People of the Council Fleet, I am Ambassador Tayman. My companions and I are returning to you, but not as the same beings who left 6 months ago. We bring with us an offer that could change the future of our galaxy." Admiral Krathvor activated his communication system. "Ambassador, you were ordered to return immediately for evaluation. You will surrender yourselves to Council authority." "We will do more than that," replied Tayman. "We will demonstrate something that words cannot convey. But first, we request permission to address the full Council Assembly." On the flagship's bridge, Captain Wu Sung's voice joined the transmission. "Admiral, I am Captain Wu Sung of the Void Hunters. I know you have orders to use force if necessary, but I ask you to consider that there might be a better way." "Admiral." Krathvor felt confusion. Wu Sung's voice carried authority and confidence, but it was different somehow. There was a warmth there that no Void Hunter should possess. "Captain Wu Sung, you have been declared mentally compromised. Your words cannot be trusted." "Then trust your own observations," said Dr. Haijin, her voice joining the conversation. "We are returning voluntarily. We are not resisting. We are offering to submit to any examination the Council requires." Does this sound like the behavior of beings who have been conquered by an enemy? Sora's voice added to the chorus. "Admiral, I have analyzed the tactical situation. Your fleet has enough firepower to destroy this entire system. But the humans have made no move to defend themselves. Their behavior does not match the profile of an aggressive species." On ships throughout the fleet, alien officers listened to their transformed colleagues with growing uncertainty. These were not the voices of beings who had been brainwashed or coerced. They spoke with clarity and conviction that seemed genuine. The human ship that escorted the shuttle transmitted its own message. A calm voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. "Council Fleet, this is Captain Sung Wan of the Earth vessel Bridge of Understanding. We welcome you to our solar system. We know you came here expecting conflict, but we offer you something better." Admiral Krathvor had fought in dozens of battles across 3 decades. He had never encountered an enemy who welcomed his arrival. "What do you offer?" "Knowledge," replied Captain Seung-wan. "The same knowledge your envoys have gained. The understanding that growth and cooperation create more strength than conquest and domination." The shuttle docked with the flagship, and the 4 envoys were brought to the main conference room under heavy guard. Admiral Krathvor had expected to see defeated prisoners or confused victims. Instead, he found himself facing 4 beings who radiated confidence and purpose. Tayman spoke first. "Admiral, we know our appearance and behavior seem strange to you. 6 months ago, we would have reacted the same way. But we ask only that you observe what we demonstrate and judge for yourself whether we have been harmed or helped by our contact with humans." "Demonstrate what?" demanded the Admiral. Dr. Hee-jin stepped forward. "Watch." She placed her crystal hands on the conference table and closed her eyes. Within seconds, the table's surface began displaying complex holographic equations, mathematical, proofs that solved resource allocation problems that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. "Impossible," whispered the Council's chief mathematician, who was monitoring the transmission from the capital. "Those equations have been unsolvable for millennia. I learned to solve them by using intuition alongside logic," explained Hye-jin. "Human thinking methods allowed me to access parts of my mind I never knew existed." Captain Wu Sung addressed the Admiral directly. "Sir, you trained me in combat tactics. You know my capabilities. Will you spar with me so you can observe how my skills have changed?" The Admiral was curious despite himself. In a cleared area of the conference room, the 2 Void Hunters engaged in ritual combat. Within minutes, it became clear that Wu Sung had indeed changed. His movements were more fluid, his strategies more creative, But most surprisingly, he fought with restraint, using only the minimum force necessary to demonstrate his points. "You fight like you are trying to teach rather than defeat," observed the Admiral. "Because I am," replied Wusung. "I have learned that the purpose of strength is to protect and guide, not to dominate." Sora activated her portable analysis system and began displaying economic models that could eliminate poverty throughout council space. These solutions become obvious when you consider the welfare of all beings rather than just maximizing efficiency, she explained. Finally, Taemin addressed the fundamental question. "Admiral, you came here to retrieve compromised envoys and punish an aggressive species. But what you have found are enhanced envoys offering solutions to galactic problems, and a peaceful species that welcomes even an invasion fleet. Does this not suggest that your original assumptions were wrong?" Admiral Krathvor looked around the room at his officers. He could see uncertainty in their faces. The evidence before them contradicted everything they had been told about humans and their supposed corruption of the envoys. "What do you propose?" he asked finally. "Allow volunteers from your fleet to experience what we experienced," said Taemin. "Let them live among humans for a period of time and observe the results. If they are harmed or diminished in any way, take whatever action you deem necessary. But if they are enhanced as we have been, consider that this might be an opportunity rather than a threat." The communication system crackled as the council leader's voice came through from the capital. "Admiral, you are not authorized to negotiate. Retrieve the envoys and destroy the human installations." But before the Admiral could respond, something unprecedented happened. Captain Mira Esch of the Data Synthesis Guild, speaking from her ship, in the fleet, transmitted her own message. "Council Leader, I volunteer to participate in the proposed exchange. I wish to verify the envoy's claims through direct observation." Her words triggered an avalanche of responses throughout the fleet. Officers from different species and ships began volunteering for the exchange program. Within minutes, over 50 volunteers had requested permission to visit the human station. Admiral Krathvor found himself facing a decision that would determine the course of galactic history. He could follow his orders and attack, potentially, starting a war that would devastate both sides. Or he could allow the unprecedented experiment that his own officers were demanding. "Council Leader," he said finally, "I am observing behavior patterns that do not match our intelligence assessments. I request permission to conduct a limited investigation before taking military action." The communication channel fell silent for several minutes. When the council leader finally responded, his voice was tight with reluctance. "You have 48 hours to investigate. After that, you will complete your mission regardless of what you discover." And so began the most unusual first contact event in galactic history. Over the next 2 days, 50 volunteers from the council fleet visited New Sol Station. They participated in community meetings, worked on collaborative research projects, and experienced the daily life of a society built on growth and cooperation. Captain Mira Esch found herself working with human scientists on encryption problems that had challenged her species for generations. Using human intuitive thinking methods alongside her analytical abilities, she solved them in hours. Commander Zelt Kree of the Crystalline Collective experienced human art and music, discovering that creativity could enhance logical thinking rather than interfere with it. Sub-Admiral Nothquan of the Zentari Empire participated in a human decision-making process and learned that authority based on wisdom and consent was more effective than authority based on rank and force. One by one, the volunteers underwent the same transformation that the original envoys had experienced. They did not lose their original nature, they enhanced it. They became more than they had been before. On the final day, Admiral Krathvor himself visited the station. He met with the transformed volunteers and saw the evidence of their growth. He spoke with human leaders and witnessed their genuine desire for cooperation rather than conquest. That evening, as he prepared to return to his flagship, Ambassador Jiwan asked him a simple question. "Admiral, do you believe your people are ready to grow?" Standing in the garden where children from a dozen species played together, watching his own officers teach human children the games of their homeworlds, Admiral Krathvor realized that the answer was yes. When he returned to the fleet, he transmitted a message that would be remembered for generations. "Council Leader, I am recommending that we accept the human proposal for permanent cultural exchange centers throughout Council space.